All right, everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm here with my buddy Chris Arnold out of Tulum, Mexico, and we're going to dive into marketing for sellers on the radio today. I'm really looking forward to this interview. We've had it scheduled for a few weeks. So, Chris, thanks so much for joining us today, brother.
What's up, buddy? Glad to be hanging out, man. Talking about a hot topic.
Oh, man, we're talking about a smoking hot topic. It's funny. I don't think I've heard any on the radio in San Diego, but I know that marketing channel is just super good for getting quality leads. Because I mean, we'll talk more about it later. But I mean, generally speaking, I think not all leads are created equal, and radio is a big way to separate yourself. So before we get into that, Chris, how'd you get into the game, man? I mean, you're doing tons of deals. You've done over 2,500 transactions. You've been in business for like 15 plus years. How did you get started? Because that's very impressive. And I'm sure a lot of my new listeners are like, oh my gosh, 2,500 deals. That's crazy. How'd you get in the game, bro?
Yeah. So I had a really kind of interesting pivotal moment in my life. So I actually have a master's degree in theology, which a lot of people don't know. They're like, what the heck? And they go like, should you be like a pastor or like out on the mission field? Yeah. And my heart's always been for people. I went to seminary because I wanted to continue to go down that road of, adding value to the lives of people. And I thought I was going to do that maybe nonprofit, vocational world in the sense of ministry type stuff. But man, I had a moment. I was sitting in Chick-fil-A eating a chicken biscuit, looking up on the wall, and there's a mural, from Kathy Truitt and how they had taken Chick-fil-A as a for-profit business and utilized it to impact the world. And that was the first moment that seed got planted for me that the direction of my life might be heading toward the business route. And for me, it always just been about utilizing it as a vehicle, right? I just think it's a delivery system for me to be able to focus on the things that I find most valuable in the world. And so I stepped into real estate because at that time, being 25 with zero business acumen at all, it was like either I can go do real estate, I know that, or I know people make money in the stock market, and process of elimination was super easy. It was real estate because I'm not that strong at math. And so that's how I got into it. And the only thing I knew at the time that made sense is, we're going back to like the beginning when you just have no clue what's going on. I went and got licensed.
No way. You're an agent. You were an agent.
I was an agent, man, like hustling commissions over at Century 21, working with buyers and sellers. But I always tell people, the most important thing is sometimes you just need to get going down the road. Just get off the bench, get into the game and start heading down the road, and know at a point you'll begin to figure it out on what that true direction is. But that's how I got into it, man.
Dude, realtor, real estate agent. It's funny you say that, like not from a comical perspective, but a lot of people I interview, or just my buddies, like they got their license first, and then they realize like they were on the wrong side of the desk because they usually find investor clients, and then they're like, oh my God, this guy made 60 grand flipping that house, like, and I made 6,000. Like I'm in the game, but I'm on the wrong side of the table. So how long did it take you to realize that you want to shift over to, principal and transaction versus the agent?
Yeah, mine's a little different. I wouldn't say that I'm on one side of the table or the other. I've actually worked to marry the two together. There's a great chasm that exists between the brokerage world, being retail, and the investment world. I am in both camps thoroughly. I've been to masterminds on both sides, and they both really don't understand each other. And for the most part, kind of poke fun at each other.
Yeah, right.
Agents make fun of investors, and investors make fun of agents. So I really grew like the entire brokerage model to a place that United operating without me. We were doing like 225 transactions a year just on the brokerage side. I launched the investment side because I wanted to bring the two together. And so today, when we have a lead that comes in, again, it's about tools in the belt, right? Maybe you do creative financing. You can do a subject to exit. You might do a fix and flip exit. You might do a wholesale exit. We have a whole nother exit in my company, which is retail. So a lot of people that can call in, can't go the cash offer route, but heck, we'll list your property for 6-7%. And we'll take that commission. And so my acquisition managers most of them are licensed and trained to do both. And so what it does is it creates another stream of income to make more money off the marketing that we're doing already.
Yeah. And that's smart because there's, people don't realize in the beginning that like really it's a marketing business, and it's all about what's the return on your ad spend and how much can you scale it. And like, if you can take a lead that was going to be zero and even make it, you know, 6 or 7 grand, you can almost pay for all your marketing probably with those commissions, which a guy, Tom Caffarella, does up in Boston, who's been on the show. And I mean, at that point, you know, all your profits are technically free because you already paid for it with the commissions. So it's just it's a smart way to do it. And, you know, out of that, like, what would you say, like, from a, like, I guess on a percentage standpoint, like, you get 20 leads, would you say if they're going to do business with you, whether it's investment or agent, like, are you seeing that, I guess, the transition, like, from, hey, we can't buy your house for cash, but we can list it. Are you seeing that conversation are you seeing the sellers pretty open to that? Or a lot of times they've been like, oh, well, I know an agent, because everyone says they know an agent. But, you know, I see some people in my business where, like, I refer them an agent and they just use the random agent I referred them and I get a little referral fee. So, you know,
Yeah,
what do you
absolutely. We've had to work on the conversion side of really positioning ourselves from being a cash offer to helping them understand that simultaneously we can legitimately help them on the agency side. So absolutely, that's not something that you just start pitching and works automatically. We've had to work through that pitch. But the other thing that backs us is I was known way in the brokerage and retail world from a brand standpoint in Dallas-Fort Worth before I was on the investment side. So again, I'm not like a individual investor, you know, pitching both. You know, we were big brokerage and then launched the investment and did those two. And I can tell you, I see a lot more of that at a really high level nowadays. A lot of guys on the brokerage investment side that are doing both at a really high level. And capitalizing on both of those worlds simultaneously.
Yeah, no, it's smart, man. It's smart. There's a lot of guys. I think now guys are starting to realize it after, you know, they've been beating their head into the ground with a lot of these marketing campaigns. So, you know, as we, you know, transition more into the marketing side of the show, the big thing that you're known for is the radio guy, which is, I was listening to you and Trevor Mock speak yesterday on a podcast, and it's like, I think you said it or he said it, but like, radio is like the channel that everyone knows about, but no one actually does. You know, like, you go to a seminar and you're like, go do direct mail, which I personally love. But, you know, that direct mail, texting, calling, you know, talk to people.
Same old
stuff. And they all work. But the radio is something that TV, you know, but the radio is something that, you know, of course, everyone knows radio stations. It doesn't matter where you live, they exist. But what made you really gravitate more towards radio? And then maybe we can get into some of the big benefits that you see from radio, and then obviously the people listening can consider this and maybe apply that themselves in their own business.
Yeah. You know, I think and I know actually, if you read books on marketing, you know, one of the key things to having a successful marketing strategy is to not be in a ton of competition. You know, things like direct mail, again, I'd love to be on the front side of that when that originally started, right? Or the front side of SEO before, you know, people really understood what that was. So I'm a big believer that being first to the table, and if you're going to play poker, don't sit at a table that's extremely overcrowded, because I don't care how good you are at Texas Hold'em, it's just difficult to play when there's a lot of people. And so I'm always looking for something in which we're betting against the consensus, but we get it right. And radio is that thing. But here's the thing that people don't realize, and I'll connect 2 dots for you that are listening right now. The first thing I will tell you is that you probably confuse yourself as your demographic. So you're going to say to yourself, well, I have Spotify downloaded on my phone, or I listen to Pandora. The problem is you are not your demographic. Your demographic is primarily over the age of 50. And trust me, they are not streaming music. They still have 2, you know, habits that they grew up with, and that is they watch television and they listen to the radio. And then when you begin to realize, oh my gosh, one of the best ways to get in front of exactly the person that I'm primarily doing business with over the age of 50 is radio. You're like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, my gosh, like the dots connect, and you're like, oh, again, it's an epiphany in the moment when you say it. So I think that that's a key thing. And then the other thing I would say is people make this assumption about radio that it's not affordable. If I ask most people, what do you got to start monthly with a budget to get radio up and going? I hear numbers of like $10K. You know, across the board, we've set now, I think we're well over 100 students across the country who've helped set this up. The average range for our students from small, mid to large market is between about $1,000 to $2,000 a month. That is probably less than you're spending on direct mail right now if you're listening. And the reason is people don't realize that you can buy radio like you buy real estate at a deep discounted wholesale price. The worst thing you can do is call a radio station and ask for a media packet because they're going to sell you retail. We don't buy retail. We pay nothing retail as investors. Our whole deal is the whole world of wholesaling. And so once you begin to realize that, and you're like, okay, so my number one avatar listens to this. And on top of that, I can get in front of them, millions of people for $1,000 to $2,000 a month starting off. Dude, that's huge. And people just don't get it. It's a huge misconception. And so they don't connect those dots.
Yeah, no, that's big. And I think that was the big myth that anyone would have. You just hit it right on the head. You think radio, you think extremely expensive because you're thinking of like whatever your local station is like, oh man, if they want to talk to a small guy like me, you assume it's probably expensive. And then I bet you because of that, that's why people weren't really catching on to this because they're like, oh, that's for the big fancy rich guys or whatever. And then they blow that off. But yet they're spending 3 times as much, even on cold calling, which gets expensive. I mean, because it all comes down to like cost per lead and things like that. And like if you're in a saturated market like Dallas, San Diego, Phoenix, there's a lot of guys
to get creative.
Yeah, you got to, man. I mean, that's just the way it is, and that's how reality works. So, besides the fact that it's a lot cheaper than people think, when it comes to the actual like the radio campaigns, like. What would you say from your experience? Like, is there a specific channel or like genre? Like, is it music? Is it like, talk show? Is it news? Like, what channels do you see like work best? Because you said something great earlier, like the demographic is who you're going after and older people listen to radio. So does that matter or is it more just about consistency like with direct mail?
Oh, it matters tremendously. I mean, this isn't rocket science. What do your grandparents listen to? What do your parents listen to, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to listen to oldies. They're going to listen to things like classical music, that old school country that they grew up with. So here's the big thing. Radio is not a spray and pray model. Everyone is always looking for the ability to hone in on a niche.
Yeah.
Radio has that built in automatically because trust me, there's not a bunch of people in their 20s listening to old school country. It's just not going to happen. Generations stick to the music that they were raised up on. So the thing I love about it is the fact that you are getting in front of your target audience and you're not getting in front of people that aren't because they're not going to tune in and listen to that type of music. And so to answer your question, something like talk radio, it works. We recommend music over talk radio because people in talk radio that listen tend to be more affluent by nature. So therefore, the circumstances to create that deal are potentially less. I'm not saying that we don't use talk radio, but we definitely see more success, and we always start students on the music stations primarily first.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, especially like the old R&B or jazz, like only old people are going to listen to that. And I hope if old people are listening right now, they can probably type me in and say that's correct. I'm not discriminating here. That's just the way it is. They're not, it's funny, they're not listening to Spotify. They don't even know. I mean, dude, I'm doing a deal right now where like I couldn't even DocuSign the contract. The guy lives on Catalina, a house in San Diego. I had to snail mail the guy the damn contract, and he was like 60 years old. So these people are not catching up with technology.
And that's a good point. You see the behavior in the sense that for most of the part, that generation is not heavily used to tech. No. So emailing and utilizing something like DocuSign or forget it, Zoom. Are you kidding me? You're going to try to do that? So that should tell you that those people obviously are not utilizing Spotify. They're still getting in the car and turning on the radio. It's their favorite station. That's just how they work.
Exactly. And a lot of the people have older cars too. They don't even have Bluetooth or anything like that, or they're in their house playing their old radio. Like old people, and like I said, if there's old people listening, they're probably going to send me hate mail, but they don't really like change that much. And that's just the way it is. I mean, no one likes change, but when the older you get, the less you want to go and get the new iPhone and get the new MacBook and buy a Tesla. You want to keep things the way they are because you like consistency and simplicity. And that's funny. Like I was connecting the dots yesterday when I was listening to you and Trevor. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like we want like our list stacked. We want the ideal customer, and we try to do all this with outbound marketing. But the thing with radio that I'm excited to cover right now is the lead quality that you see from doing all those things and from being strategic. So I want you to maybe share a little bit about like the type of leads that you're getting from the radio and how that is a lot different, versus call.
This podcast is sponsored by Elite Productivity Habits. Are you looking for a system that will show you how to become a top achiever? Have you ever felt like you get bogged down in the weeds and never get the things done that matter most? Elite Productivity Habits is an online course that provides a step-by-step blueprint for setting and achieving your goals. In the course, you'll learn how to take control of your day, master your week, and plan your month so that all your working time is spent on things that will get you closer to your goals. You'll also learn how to systematically apply time blocking so that you can get your most important activities completed each day. In the course, you'll learn a life-changing reflecting system with 5 powerful questions that you can ask that will change your life and lead to massive, consistent growth. If you're a high achiever or have a desire to be a high achiever, this is the course for you that lays out the blueprint for you. This course is guaranteed to help you achieve more, or you'll receive a 110% money-back guarantee. You heard that right. If you buy the course and think it stinks, you'll get paid all your money back and 10% of the course fee. There's honestly nothing to lose and everything to gain. To learn more about the course, head over to getgregscourse.com to see if it's a fit. Once again, head over to getgregscourse.com to check out the course.
Texting and things like that, because this is really where I think the magic is.
Yeah. So the best thing that I always remind people is I don't care if you're doing cold calling, direct mail, RVM, text blasting, you are list dependent. So you might have a different methodology than the other investor in town on how you're going about it, but the reality is you're all fighting over the same list. Yes. What makes radio so great is it's not list dependent. You are getting in front of people that are not getting texts a lot of times, that are not getting that postcard. So from a competition level, in the sense of the quality of the lead, we love radio because we don't show up and have to go up against, 5 other wholesalers or fix and flip guys in the area. We are a lot of times the only one that goes out to that actual appointment. Now, I'm going to pick on direct mail a little bit. Direct mail works. If you're utilizing it's great, but let's contrast these two. Direct mail is high volume of calls, low quality lead. I don't think that anyone would debate that probably 50% or more of those calls are hate calls. Don't mail my house. They're just trash. And so
100%.
Again, if you're patient enough to work through them, which we do, if the return is there, we will get down to kind of the diamonds in the rough. Radio is on the opposite side of that spectrum. It is a lower call volume. So particularly if you're newer, I recommend it for newer people because you don't have to deal with large call volume like you do cold calling and so forth to get to the good stuff. It is lower call volume and it's the highest quality lead still to this date that I know how to generate because somebody listening in a car that calls in on a radio station is motivated. If they don't like you, they just turn the dial and listen to the next station. They're not going to take the time to either memorize the number they heard or write it down and call you unless they're motivated. So we just find from an overall management standpoint in comparison direct mail on the quality and the management of it, it's huge. It's a primary difference. I tell you what, a lot of students who sign up for REI Radio tell me, they go, Chris, I don't want the feeling that every time I launch a new marketing channel, I just created an entirely new job for myself and my business. I'm already working a 9 to 5. I'm trying to get out of the rat race, be a full-time investor, and I don't have the time to deal with something that's high maintenance. And direct mail, cold calling, they work, but they are honestly a pain in the ass to manage because they're high maintenance. What I like to say about radio, it's set it and forget it. All you got to do is pay your bill and answer the phone when it rings. That's it. Because the radio station does all of the management for you on making sure the ads play. And when my students get up, they're like, you've got to be kidding me. Again, I'm going to continue to cold call, but by comparison, man, I love this radio thing because I don't have to think about it. I just get to focus on managing the leads that are coming in. I don't have a secondary job by managing the overall operations of what it takes to make that marketing channel work.
Oh, no, that's a great point you just said there, especially for someone who's new, because running an outbound campaign is literally just like another job. Like you have to make sure your lists, your phone numbers, a lot of sifting and sorting. So if you can just focus on, there's a really good book I'm reading right now called Clockwork. And he talks about like the queen bee role, which is the most important thing in your business. And in our business, it's making offers on discounted houses. Like if you do that well, you make a lot of money. And with radio, it sounds like that's really a channel where you don't have to worry about anything but making offers on sellers because they're going to come in with less resistance and they already know what the deal is and they're calling in and they're qualified. Like they're not all going to be lay downs, but they're interested and they're not really skeptical, right? I used to, like, when you get a text lead, they're like, oh, how'd you get my number? How'd you do this, that?
This is huge, what you're hitting on right here. Yeah. So here's the difference. If I ask you right now, if you're listening and you do bandit signs or direct mail, I guarantee you're probably not putting your company name on there.
No.
Unless you want your company.
Never, ever.
So the problem is the way that relationship starts out on it, let's say a text blast, is it starts with skepticism, because the reality is you spammed your way in front of that person. They know it, you know it, and that's where the relationship begins. Here's what you get on radio that you don't get on any other marketing channels. The first thing you get is what's called celebrity status. So this is where movie stars come from. This is where famous people come from. Famous people are made in 3 ways: television, radio, and the internet, obviously social media. So all of a sudden, what I challenge people, particularly if you're new, is can you imagine being able to build your brand really quickly within your area and all of a sudden have more popularity than the person that's been doing wholesaling for 5 or 10 years? The only way that you can do something like that is to utilize a source like radio that creates that celebrity status, because something happens psychologically in the mind of us as humans when we see people on TV and hear them on the radio. It happens all the time. We elevate their position. And here's the second thing you get, and this is super cool if you're new, you get instant credibility. Because you asked earlier, when people call in, like, what's their response in comparison to someone on text? Text, they're skeptical. Radio, here's the assumption they make in their mind. Oh, Greg, you advertise on radio, and only people that advertise on radio know what they're talking about. So therefore, you are an expert, because only experts can afford to be there in the first place.
100%.
So from that standpoint, we don't have to go through this whole process of trying to really over-earn their trust like on other marketing channels. They just automatically, for the most part, trust you because you're a celebrity and you're an assumed expert.
Totally. And you're not having to, well, we've been in business for 15 years and we're rated A+ with the Better Business Bureau. And it's like, dude, no one, like, I see, like, I break down sales calls and like, I hear people say that. And I'm like, they don't give a shit about that. Like, they care about how can you solve their problem. And the less you talk and the more you listen, the more money you make. But no, you made a great point there. Like that celebrity status. And it's like, I even feel that too. I remember the first time I went to a real estate seminar from a podcast that I follow. I saw the guy, it's Matt Terrio, probably a mutual friend of ours. And I was like, this is like when I started. So I was like, oh my God, it's Matt. And now he's just like a normal dude. He's like one of my buddies, but like the radio podcast. So it's like, your status elevated. Yeah.
Radio is just another, again, podcast is kind of the 21st century of radio. But again, our people that we're going after don't listen to podcasts.
They don't listen to podcasts.
So you're getting that same feeling they have. I'm telling you, I get texts from friends, people all the time. For some reason, they just feel like they got to tell me, oh, I heard you on the radio. Yeah. It's just funny what's happening psychologically. Again, it'd be interesting to always understand how all that works in our brain. All I can tell you is I know that it works, and we know that it works obviously with celebrities.
For sure. Well, listen, I think we gave everyone a pretty good crash course on radio. So as we kind of wind the show down here, I know there's something that you got a group, you've been part of masterminds, and I know that, like, I think everyone can benefit from being a part of a group, whether that's a paid mastermind, whether that's a meetup once a month, or whether it's like a Zoom call with like other like-minded people. But I just kind of want to see if you could hit on like really the power you've gotten just from organized groups, just collaborating with other people who are like-minded, and how that's maybe helped you in your life, in your past, on some good things and some bad things maybe. Because I think a lot of people in this business, they feel like they're isolated, especially in the beginning. Like all their friends think they're crazy. They think they don't know if it works because they haven't really done it yet. And I think when they can start aligning themselves with other people, whether that's in a paid mastermind or a meetup or just some sort of accountability meeting where everyone meets up and talks about their goals, it really, like, you become the average of the 5 people, and you can start to elevate yourself just by associating with others, because you're going to pick up on the habits and the behaviors that other people do.
Yeah. So, I get asked a lot of times, Chris, if you could go back and do something. Everyone loves that question, right? Everything you did.
Yeah.
So I can tell you, coaching and community are 2 things that I wish I didn't wait for 3 years in the business until I did. I didn't hire my first coach for 3 years. A mistake, because you will go further and faster with the coach. And again, coach, mentor, whatever you want to call them, paid, unpaid, it doesn't matter. The reality is that you are getting a voice in your life that's further along than you are. so that you don't need to trial and error everything in your business and your life. It's stupid. Learn from the mistakes of other people, from those that can go, you know what, I'll help you sidestep that pit that you could have fallen into. And then community is powerful. When people come together that are like-minded, that are running in the same lane, dealing with the same problems, I really believe that you see something magical happen. That's why I'm such a big advocate for communities and masterminds. So the one I have, and you said it earlier, because again, people ask me, well, you know, Chris, Multipliers Brotherhood, that's why you get out of bed in the morning more than anything. Like, that's your heart and passion, is the transformation of all of these men. Again, we focus on men, particularly because it's a brotherhood, and we focus on the top, 5% of guys in the country. But I can tell you the two problems that we're attacking. Problem number one, you said the word earlier, is it's isolation. If you find and talk with most entrepreneurs, even statistics done on most men, and you ask them, if the shit hit the fan and your life was falling apart, how many men do you have in your life that you can actually confide in and talk about the difficult things? Primarily, the answer back in the 80% something range is zero. Zero. That men are so isolated that if their life were to begin to fall apart and unravel, they have not one confidant. So it is a dangerous thing, and it exists primarily even more in the entrepreneurial world, because you are isolated in the sense of being an entrepreneur. Most people are working a 9 to 5 and cannot relate with you as a business owner. And if that was the world you grew up in and all of a sudden you're an entrepreneur, I'm sorry, your friends don't get you anymore. They don't.
I agree with that.
And the second problem that we are overcoming is the fact that only 1 out of 3 leaders will finish well. That means the other 2/3 will not get across the finish line and will get disqualified, and they will somehow implode because of a mistake they make or some moral misstep, and they will crumble everything that they have built, and they will leave a wake of destruction for all of those that had their eyes on them. This is painful when a leader falls, particularly one that we admire, that we thought walked with character and integrity, and then they fall flat on their face in a way and they make that mistake. Is devastating. And so Multipliers exists for 2 reasons. And this also answers your question. I don't care what community you get in and get into one. Number one, you've got to get out of isolation and to get around other people that have your back. That's why we call it a brotherhood, not a mastermind. And number 2, you are not going to scale to the top of Everest by yourself. I'll just straight up tell you, you are foolish if you think that you're going to get there on your own. You are not a one-man show. There's no such thing as a self-made person. That is absolutely arrogance to ever believe that. Everything that we are and who we become in life are the people along the way that deposited something inside of us. And so why not be intentional about increasing your environment and the people that you're around? Because fundamentally, I will tell you that people change people the most, more than books, more than just a typical seminar, more than your YouTube videos that you're watching, the podcasts you're listening to now. People change people the most. And so if that is the case, you've got to go into that type of environment. That's why I'm super passionate about Multipliers Brotherhood.
That's awesome. Those are some great points there. And I think that the big takeaway that Chris and I want the listeners to get is like, if you're new, if you're overwhelmed, you got to just link up with other people in the beginning who are like-minded and stay on the same track. And it's funny you say that, because I remember when I started even going just to events and just networking with more investors who were more successful than me at the time, like within a few months, I started automatically doing more deals, because like that was like the new standard I kind of set for myself. So like no matter what, I'd find a way to, get back, into doing deals if I was in a slump or something. And I concur with you. The power of masterminds is absolutely powerful. And I think between the radio and getting in a group that's like-minded, it's just a recipe for major success. So Chris, as we really wrap the show up, man, if people were interested in learning more about REI Radio, where would be, or what is REI Radio, like in terms of the actual program, and then how would they be able to check it out and see if it's a fit for them?
I mean, it's literally the full blueprint, plug and play. Like, we're going to walk in side by side with the person and literally help them take everything we've done in our business, split tested over 10 years doing radio, and literally just take it and integrate it right into somebody's business. So I believe in instruction over education. Education is good information. Instruction is show me how to actually do this. Walk beside me. So that's what REI Radio looks like. And that's why we've definitely seen the success that we have. Again, we preserve markets. We actually limit the amount of people per market to the very foundational thing we talked about getting too many people around the poker table. So you always got to check in and see if your market's even available. But the way to do that is go to wholesalinginc.com/REI Radio, wholesalinginc.com/REI Radio. And of course, too, people listening, they're always like, Chris, everybody's looking for free content information as well. So you can also just go to my YouTube channel and subscribe at Chris Arnold Real Estate and just kind of follow along with additional things that we've got going on. But it starts with asking questions. So go to Wholesaling Inc. and book that call, ask questions, do your due diligence, and see if it's a great marketing channel. But if you're like me and Greg and maybe have been worn out over the years a bit by the prospecting outbound side, again, we're not telling you not to do it. We still do it, but I can tell you I now have definitely more money and more time in the marketing than I do prospecting, because I'd rather just take the nice inbound call than have to spend a bunch of time trying to, as you said, through and sort.
Sift and sort. Totally. Well, listen, Chris, this has been a lot of fun, man. I'm sure people will be reaching out. And thank you so much for joining us, man. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Hey, thanks for having me, buddy.